On a crisp October day in 2025, the vast prairies of Alberta and Saskatchewan seem peaceful under the golden autumn sun. But beneath the calm, a storm is brewing, one that will soon sweep across the entire nation. Canada is rocked to its core as Alberta and Saskatchewan, in a stunning and unprecedented move, jointly declare their intent to pursue statehood within the United States. The announcement is broadcast live, instantly dominating headlines and social media feeds across the country. Though the declaration holds no legal weight, its impact is immediate and profound. Shockwaves ripple through every province, igniting chaos, heated debate, and uncertainty. People gather in public spaces, glued to screens, trying to process what this means for the future of their country. Years of simmering resentment over federal policies, especially those affecting oil, gas, and agriculture, have finally boiled over. For many in the prairies, this dramatic, defiant gesture is a culmination of long-standing frustrations and a desperate call for change. What began as fringe talk among a few has now exploded into headline news, fueled by deep economic anxiety and a growing sense of cultural alienation. Coffee shops buzz with conversation and protest rallies swell with people demanding their voices be heard. The declaration, while symbolic for now, marks a point of no return. It forces political leaders and citizens alike to confront a profound crisis of national identity, unity, and the very future of the Canadian Federation. The prairie fire of separatism is no longer just a distant threat, it is burning fiercely, threatening to reshape Canada's destiny and challenging the bonds that have held the nation together for generations. The separatist surge in Alberta and Saskatchewan is deeply influenced by American political discourse. Slogans like "Make Alberta Great Again" reflect a genuine ideological kinship with U.S. conservatism, not mere imitation. Many prairie residents see the U.S. as a model of economic freedom and self-determination, contrasting sharply with what they view as Ottawa's overreach. The idea of joining the U.S. has moved from fringe fantasy to mainstream debate, especially among those in the oil and gas sector. Separatist leaders actively court American political support, drawing inspiration from U.S. conservative movements. This infusion of American identity has transformed the movement into a dynamic continental issue. The Wexit movement's core demand is independence for Alberta and Saskatchewan, a call that has grown louder in recent years as frustrations with federal policies and perceived economic injustices have mounted. Supporters argue that Ottawa's decisions often overlook the unique needs and priorities of the western provinces, fueling a sense of alienation and a desire for self-determination. Wexit envisions a new nation, one that is free from Ottawa's control and able to chart its own course on everything from resource management to taxation. The idea is to create a government that truly reflects the values and aspirations of the people living in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Yet, many Wexit leaders also promote U.S. statehood as a pragmatic alternative, appealing to those wary of economic uncertainty and the challenges of building a new country from scratch. For some, joining the United States offers the promise of stability, access to a larger market, and a stronger voice on the world stage. This dual approach, pushing for both independence and the option of U.S. statehood, broadens support, making the movement more than just rhetoric or protest. It's a strategic effort to unite people with different visions for the future under a common cause. Wexit has launched billboard campaigns across major cities and highways, ensuring their message is seen by thousands every day. They've also built a strong online presence, using social media to organize supporters, share news, and counter critics, making the movement accessible to a wider audience. On the ground, grassroots efforts are in full swing. Activists hand out flyers, gather signatures for petitions, and host community events to keep the idea of separation in the public eye and spark conversations at the local level. Meanwhile, Wexit leaders are lobbying in Washington, D.C., seeking to gauge American interest in potential statehood and to build relationships with U.S. officials who could play a role in any future negotiations. The movement is no longer a fringe idea, it's a coordinated force, gaining momentum and media attention, determined to force a reckoning on both sides of the border and to make their voices heard at the highest levels. Wexit supporters aren't waiting for permission, they're actively shaping their own destiny, rallying communities, and challenging the status quo in pursuit of a future they believe in. Economic frustration is the engine of prairie separatism, centered on resentment over equalization payments and federal policies. Billions from Alberta's oil and gas industry are redistributed to other provinces, fueling a sense of exploitation. Federal environmental regulations and pipeline blockades are seen as direct threats to local livelihoods. Separation, or U.S. statehood, promises liberation for the energy sector and a return to prosperity. Recent economic hardships and perceived federal mismanagement have intensified the anger. For many, this is not just politics. It's about survival and securing a future for their families. Personal stories of hardship and hope drive the movement, turning abstract debates into urgent, everyday concerns. The path to separation or U.S. statehood for Alberta and Saskatchewan is not just steep, it's a legal and political labyrinth, filled with obstacles at every turn. The idea of breaking away from Canada or joining another country is far more complicated than it might first appear, involving layers of constitutional, legal, and diplomatic hurdles that few regions have ever successfully navigated. The first major hurdle is a clear referendum majority. But what exactly counts as clear? That's a question that sparks heated debate among politicians, legal scholars, and the public. Some argue for a simple majority, while others insist on a supermajority to ensure legitimacy. This ambiguity sets an exceptionally high bar, making it difficult for any movement to claim an undeniable mandate for such a drastic change. Even if a successful vote is achieved, the real work begins with complex negotiations. Leaders would need to untangle decades of shared assets and debts from infrastructure to natural resources. Crucially, Indigenous rights and treaties would demand careful attention, as any new arrangement would have to respect existing agreements and address the concerns of Indigenous communities, who have their own legal and historical claims to the land. If Alberta and Saskatchewan ever reached the point of seeking U.S. statehood, the process would only get more complicated. Only as independent nations could they formally petition the U.S. Congress for admission, and even then, the outcome would be far from certain. Admission to the United States would require a formal act of Congress, with American lawmakers weighing the political, economic, and strategic implications. U.S. interest would take precedence, and the decision would be shaped by partisan debates and national priorities. The process would ignite fierce debate in Washington, with major implications for U.S. politics, from the balance of power in Congress to the impact on federal policies and international relations. Ultimately, the journey is a two-stage gauntlet. First, a messy and uncertain Canadian divorce, and then a high-stakes American courtship with no guarantee of success at either stage. The road is tangled and the outcome remains deeply uncertain. Ottawa's response is firm: Canada is indivisible, and the province's declaration is swiftly dismissed as unconstitutional by federal leaders. The federal government projects calm authority, insisting the crisis will be managed through established legal channels and the rule of law. Meanwhile, Alberta and Saskatchewan's leaders channel public anger, arguing that Ottawa's system is fundamentally broken and their provincial interests are unprotected. The standoff is tense. Provincial leaders must balance popular support with the very real risks of their actions. The gap between federal unity and provincial self-determination has never been wider or more pronounced. With little common ground, a peaceful resolution now seems remote and unlikely. The stage is set for a prolonged, bitter conflict over Canada's uncertain future. Social media has supercharged the separatist movement, creating a powerful echo chamber and energizing supporters. Endorsements from high-profile figures like Elon Musk have given the cause global attention and legitimacy. This digital momentum makes the movement appear mainstream, even if true support is uncertain. Looking ahead, Canada faces a crossroads. Legal battles could paralyze the nation, deepening alienation and dysfunction. Alternatively, the crisis could force real negotiations and constitutional reform, granting the provinces more autonomy. If compromise fails, a referendum could trigger an unprecedented national crisis. The Prairie Fire may either forge a new federation or signal the beginning of the end for a united Canada.